Minerals are essential micronutrients. Let's take a look at how they're classified, their functions, bioavailability, and regulation. Minerals are classified generally as major minerals. Those are the ones that compose more than 5 grams of your body mass. They have to be consumed at levels of more than 1,000 milligrams per day. And trace minerals, those are consumed at levels less than 20 milligrams per day. Minerals are essential for a variety of body functions. Unlike the vitamins, minerals are actually structural components for several of your molecules and tissues. They're needed for many functions, including conducting electrical impulses that are necessary for your nervous system and muscle systems, carrying oxygens to the cells so that they can make ATP, and maintaining your blood pressure. Similar to vitamins, many of the minerals are needed for proper enzyme function. Also similar to vitamins, bioavailability relies on several factors. In plant-based foods, minerals are often attached to other chemical groups such as oxalates or phytates. These binders typically cause minerals to pass through the body instead of being absorbed. In some cases, food combinations or food preparation can improve that bioavailability. Let's take a look at a few examples. Many Americans do not get enough calcium in their diet. Since calcium is essential for many body functions, including muscle contraction, neurotransmission, blood clotting, hardness of bones and teeth, just to name a few, it's really important to maximize your calcium absorption. Unfortunately, some food sources that are rich in calcium have binders that inhibit the absorption. For example, foods high in oxalic acid include spinach, collard greens, sweet potatoes, rhubarb, and beans. And foods high in phytic acid include all of the whole grain and whole wheat bran products, beans, seeds, and nuts. So it's important to be sure that you include sources of calcium with high bioavailability in your diet. All dairy products contain high amounts of very bioavailable calcium, especially when those products are fortified with vitamin D. Kale, broccoli, and bok choy are good plant-based options. Another interesting detail about calcium is that calcium and other similar minerals such as magnesium, zinc, and iron compete for limited receptors in the intestine. So if you eat all your calcium-rich foods at one time, or take a calcium supplement at the same time you have a meal high in minerals, they're going to pass out unabsorbed. It's much better to spread your mineral-rich foods throughout the day. Another mineral to pay attention to is iron. There's 2 forms of iron. Iron from animal-based foods comes from hemoglobin and myoglobin. It's in a readily absorbed iron 2 form. Iron in plants, on the other hand, is poorly absorbed. It's in the iron 3 form. Fortunately, that iron can be made available by combining iron-rich plant foods with foods containing vitamin C. So, try some spinach salad with mandarin oranges and hearts of palm, or try a kale and kiwi shake, or black beans and cabbage. There's tons of tasty combinations. Absorption of your minerals depends on your nutritional status. When you're deficient in a mineral, more of that mineral will be absorbed than when you have adequate levels. However, the concentration of some minerals, like iron, sodium, potassium, and calcium, have hormonal feedback mechanisms to be sure that you maintain those blood levels in a specific range. Let's take a look at how that works. In order to understand some of the terminology that we'll be using, we need to take a brief look at the function of the kidneys. The kidneys are packed with tons of nephrons. That's the functional unit inside the kidney. Nephrons first filter the blood, and then they make adjustments to the blood composition by reabsorption, That means returning solutes that were originally filtered out of the blood back into the blood. And tubular secretion. That means moving unwanted solutes from the blood into the tubules for waste disposal in the urine. Through these processes, the kidneys can help regulate the amounts of minerals and other solutes in the blood. Sodium and potassium are regulated together via a hormone called aldosterone. These two ions work in concert for electrical impulses needed for nervous and muscle systems. They also work together for balancing the body's fluids. Let's look at only the sodium and potassium blood homeostasis first. These levels are controlled by that hormone aldosterone, which is produced by the adrenal gland. Increased blood potassium or decreased blood sodium is detected by the adrenal gland and causes it to secrete aldosterone. As a result, the kidney will reabsorb more sodium and secrete more potassium. Conversely, if the adrenal gland detects decreased blood potassium levels or increased blood sodium levels, it has the opposite effect. If you've taken an anatomy and physiology course, you're most likely aware that fluid balance, specifically the volume of the blood, is tightly correlated to blood pressure. Therefore, sodium and potassium levels are also tied to blood pressure. So, you may be aware that the secretion of aldosterone can be stimulated via a different pathway that's independent of the actual sodium and potassium levels. In this pathway, the trigger is low blood pressure and causing a cascade of events called the renin-angiotensin pathway. That cascade includes the secretion of aldosterone, and aldosterone will have the same effect. However, the purpose of that pathway is not homeostasis of sodium and potassium levels in the blood, but rather it's part of the regulation of blood volume and therefore blood pressure. Let's take a look at one more important mineral. Your bones act to store calcium. You can think of your bones as calcium banks. When you have excess calcium, you can store it there. When you're deficient, you can remove it. Suppose that you have not eaten any calcium-rich foods today. You're going to need to remove some calcium from your bank. The parathyroid gland will detect the low blood calcium levels and will secrete parathyroid hormone. This in turn causes the kidneys to convert vitamin D to the active form calcitrol. PTH and calcitrol will result in calcium being reabsorbed into the kidney, absorption of more calcium in the intestine, and cells called osteoclasts will break down bone to release the calcium stored there into the blood. Those actions will increase the blood calcium level. Needless to say, if you keep withdrawing from your calcium bank without making deposits, the result can be devastating for your bone health. But let's suppose that now you have eaten lots of calcium-rich foods today and your blood calcium levels are increasing. The increase is detected by your thyroid gland, and it responds by increasing the secretion of calcitonin and inhibiting the secretion of PTH. As a result, less calcium is reabsorbed in the kidney, therefore it'll be excreted in the urine. Osteoblasts in the bone are stimulated to make new bone matrix, which then gets calcified by moving calcium from the blood into the bone, and the absorption of calcium in the intestines decreases. These actions will decrease blood calcium level and bring it back to homeostasis. As you work through your mineral chapters, we'll be studying the functions of each mineral in the body, the suggested intake levels, best food sources, and the symptoms of deficiencies and toxicities. Let me know when you have questions.